Welcome to TAVA Talks,
where there's real teens, real voices, and real change. And we are your hosts,
Lulu Roman
and Deanna Lynch.
Today we are here with Dr. Linehan.
Good afternoon. Great to be with the two of you.
It's nice to be with you, too.
The topic we are going to talk about today is about anti-violence.
Good. I know you spent a lot of time here working in the Department of Surgery over the summer on some of the anti-violence efforts through TAVA. Why don't you tell everybody what TAVA stands for and why you got interested in spending your summer on this anti-violence project?
It stands for Teen Anti-Violence Alliance, and we are a social media campaign, and most teens actually use social media, so I feel like us as teenagers, we have more connections with them as well, so we felt like it was a great idea.
Mm-hmm. Teen outreach is so important because they're the ones that are mostly causing gun violence and different variations of violence. As teenagers ourselves, we know that we don't really, sometimes we don't listen to adults and we make bad decisions, but when another teenager tells us to do something, we listen to them more. Mm-hmm. So it's nice that we are able to represent the youth and reach out to them in that way.
Great, yeah. My children aren't teenagers anymore, but they're 22 and 24. Oh. And when they were teenagers, they didn't listen to me as much as they listened to their friends, for sure.
Exactly.
That's how it be. Yeah.
And that's the point that we were trying to reach.
Right, and through social media platforms.
Yeah.
It's there's good and bad to social media platforms. I think it's good because you have this immediate way to communicate with a lot of people, but there's also some bad information and disinformation that can disseminate on social media. So the fact that you folks are getting together to broadcast on social media good information about the engagement work that you're doing to try to tackle some of the problems we see in the city with violence is really, really good.
And we have a question that follows up with that. We actually recently learned that an interesting fact, actually. Most people are dying from gun violence than from cancer. As a surgeon that specializes in treating cancer, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously here at the University of Rochester Medical Center, we treat all different types of disease, and so I am a cancer surgeon myself. I don't do trauma surgery, but as the two of you know, because you spent time with us this summer in our trauma division, you saw the group of surgeons that treat patients with injury, and that can be anything from penetrating injury from a gunshot or a stab wound or automobile accident, even like from some of our rural communities, we have farming accidents. So the trauma team is here 24/7. Taking care of patients that are victims of violence or accidents. It's it's obviously pretty appalling when you look at what's going on in this country with gun violence. You hear almost every day of mass shootings throughout the country. One was particularly connected to me that just happened last week in Maine. We have a lot of family in Maine and Lewiston, Auburn, and my wife has several nieces and nephews that live in that community, and my son actually lives in Maine near that community. And so when you see violence like that, especially with mass murder, this was 18 people that were killed in one shooting. Yeah. It's really hard to see that. And so I think we've become a little numb to it because it happens so much and it's in the news every day, and it's in our community for sure. We see it here in the hospital every day when people are brought here. And so we need solutions to these problems. And I don't think there's one easy solution. I think that there's likely multiple solutions. But the things that you're doing to kind of communicate with your peers to try to educate them about gun violence and gun safety and even advocating for sensible gun control legislation. There's got to be more than we can do, because I think it's to the point now where we just kind of tolerate this and it's another shooting and it's barely even a news story anymore, and that's really sad when you think about it, because it's a lot of senseless loss of life.
Yeah. Which we are trying to prevent from that happening.
Right.
It's crazy how there's a lot that goes into it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we have Our next question, do you think that people outside of the healthcare field or space understands how urgent this problem is, and do they understand what might happen if we don't act now?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody understands that this is a really serious problem, and it's it's interesting if you look. I was just actually at a meeting in Washington D.C. last week, and it's called the International Surgery Group. So it's surgeons and surgical leaders from all over the world that come together for this meeting, and we were talking about this problem at the meeting with a lot of surgeons that come from Europe and Scandinavia and other places, and they look at this as kind of a uniquely American problem because there's so many guns in this country, and there's a lot of people that feel that the Second Amendment protects everybody's rights to have guns. And I feel a little bit differently about that because I think when the forefathers wrote the Constitution and the Second Amendment, we weren't talking about assault rifles that can kill multiple people in a matter of seconds. And so I think sensible gun legislation makes a lot of sense to me, and I think it makes a lot of sense to the majority of people in our community, but we still can't seem to do it. Politicians, both in the state of New York and nationally, I think have failed us on sensible gun legislation. Reasonable people can differ about how to do that, and but when you look around and see the violence and the senseless death in our community, it's like we have to figure out a way to do this, to solve this problem. But it's actually going to come from your generation, because my generation isn't doing a very good job solving this problem. So I do think that what you're doing is really important by getting the word out to fellow teens, because then you can be the next political activist that say, well, we're not going to tolerate this. We're going to speak to our legislators, get involved in politics, maybe even run for office someday.
Yeah.
To try to solve some of these problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, I'm learning a lot just speaking with you. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so we have another question. Should anti-violence or safe gun use be taught in the school district curriculum? If so, why?
Yeah, I mean, certainly anti-gun violence should be taught. Like, the statistics should be, you should know what's going on in your own communities. In terms of gun safety, I mean, we do a lot of that. You've probably seen our trauma team out at community events teaching gun safety and teaching about locking up firearms for people that legally own firearms so that they don't get into the wrong hands. If you look at actually death from guns, a lot of that is suicide, actually, not homicide. And so when there's so many guns in people's homes, it's really important that they're not just kind of left out where anybody could take it. If there's a mental health crisis and you have easy access to a gun, the data shows that you're much more likely to be successful at committing suicide if you have access to a gun. So I do think teaching gun safety is really important, and that's one of the reasons why the team here from the Department of Surgery is out in the community doing that in partnership with the Monroe County Sheriff's Office and others, trying to educate people that do own guns legally, to keep them safe, to keep them not in their car where they can get stolen by someone that's going to use it for the wrong purpose. So I think that education around gun safety is really important.
What age group do you think they should start?
It's never too young. I mean, you hear these news stories of a young child getting a gun because it's left out and harming himself or harming somebody else. So I don't think it's ever too early to start talking about that.
Yeah, I saw I researched about it, and they were saying that most people that died, like children, is from like they didn't mean to do it.
It's accidental gun death. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if there's not a gun in the household, or there's a gun in the household but it's stored safely in a locked safe, then that won't happen. So I think that the gun safety education is really important.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Well, we're last to our final two questions. How do you feel?
I feel good. It's good to be with you guys. I like to hang around with young, smart people.
Yeah. Appreciate it. As TAVA scholars, we aim to become part of a surgical team. For example, I want to be a scrub nurse.
Mm-hmm.
So, what are your tips for people like myself?
I think it's great, and that's one of the reasons why we actually bring you into our department and bring you into the operating room to show you that, because we have a need. We have a need for scrub nurses and all kinds of healthcare professionals. So it's it's a great career. Like if you come here and you work at the University of Rochester Medical Center, there's opportunities for career advancement. I've seen people start as sterile processors in the operating room, go get a nursing degree, or get a scrub tech degree and be a scrub tech, and then get a nursing degree and then become a CRNA, which is a nurse anesthetist. And so there's lots of opportunities for good jobs, and also lots of opportunities for career advancement. So that's why I was really glad to see all of you guys come and spend some time with us this summer, so you can see all of the jobs in healthcare. And we have vacancies, we have plenty of jobs for nurses, and we're hiring all the time. And I think it's particularly good that you want to be in the operating room.
Yeah.
Because they don't always, we were just talking about that this morning, like in nursing school, there's not a lot of exposure to operating rooms, and so we're seeing less and less nurses from nursing school want to come into the operating room, not because it's not a fun place to work, it's because they just don't get exposed to it. So the fact that you guys got exposed to it as high school students is really good.
Yeah, at a young age.
Yeah, because honestly, I didn't learn about scrub nurses in school or anywhere else. I actually learned it from a website.
Yeah.
I never heard of it before. I'm
right.
wow, this is actually kind of interesting. Why haven't this really been exposed?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why it's good, I think, to come and look at all there's so many different jobs here, so many healthcare jobs. And, we're the University of Rochester Medical Center is the biggest employer in the region. We have 24,000 employees. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of jobs here.
Moving forward, what do you recommend that TAVA should do to help prevent gun violence?
So I think what you're doing with the social media campaign is really important, because it's not one or two people that are going to solve this problem. It's kind of building this alliance or coalition. And so the fact that you have built this alliance, and then you'll see it grow. It's like it started, and there was what, 8 or 10 of you here this summer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then we grow that, and so it becomes known, and then you go out and talk and say, hey, I did this last year. I spent some of the time during my summer vacation from school at the University of Rochester in the Department of Surgery, getting to see this stuff and getting to learn about gun violence. And so I think what you're doing, building this alliance of people through social media and getting, and that's how activism starts. It's one person can be there saying we got to change something about this, but all of a sudden it's 10 people and that's 100 people. Mm-hmm. And then you do things like what we're doing now, where you're working to get the communications out and disseminate the information about how important gun violence is, how important fighting gun violence is.
Yeah, we also did the table where they had different type of people there, mm-hmm. and we were exposed to it. Most of the people that we were with, they changed their minds on what to do.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's great. Why don't they have more of that outside?
Yeah. And so any of these kind of community events, I know that with Dr. Cupertino, she's doing these community events, what we call community outreach and engagement. And those community events allow us to have direct communication with the people in our community to try to get them engaged and to educate them about the problem of gun violence, because I think everybody knows it's a problem, but we got to come up with some solutions.
Yeah, it's a huge problem. A huge problem.
Yeah.
I didn't even know how huge it was until we started researching about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy to see how everything goes. And we hope that together, with the University of Rochester, we can help build a positive impact.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm confident that you will.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Keep doing the good work.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Well,
okay. Well, thanks for coming and speaking with me. I enjoyed it, and if there's any way I can help you, just let me know.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for, taking your time to do this podcast with us.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, happy to.
Thank you for tuning in to TAVA Talks and being a part of our podcast journey.
And we can't wait to have you back with us on our next TAVA Talks episode.
And remember,
to always say bye to violence.